مزيد من المتابعة ينضم إلينا الدكتور عقاب
analysis we are joined
دراسات
by Dr. Auqaab Alizai, the Strategic Studies Professor. Dr. Auqaab, welcome to QAHERA News. And can we analyze the impact of the recent economic sanctions against Iran and how it reflects on the negotiations in reality and the expectations versus the expectations of the United States?
I think the United States has realized that enforcing its particular conditions using violent actions has diminishing returns because they're using their stockpiles. The munitions have run down extremely low. And as a result, what's happening is that they're using now economic pressure through the blockade. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently just said that he wants to impose the most significant and harshest sanctions Iran's ever faced. So, but Iran has been facing sanctions for the past 47 years and is kind of used to this. However, it is having an impact on Iran in many ways. Economically, their inflation is running at a sky high. They have internal pressures, domestic pressures. The government itself could be forced to think about more negotiations. However, having that pressure is also having a dynamically other effect where the hardliners, especially the Revolutionary Guards, are putting pressure on not to do that. You see, there is a double dynamic here. You can enforce pressure through economic sanctions.
So are these sanctions different compared to any other sanctions that have been imposed before against Iran, in your opinion? And with this decision and these sanctions, are we not going to see any more confrontations between Iran and the United States?
No. I think this is heading towards a continual process of economic stranglehold on Iran by the United States because it feels it can do that, but also they may well lead to confrontation if Iran attacks certain ships coming in and out of the Hormuz Strait. The Americans may be obliged to attack Iran as a reprisal, or if something happens with Israel, for example, some attacks, Iran may attack as a reprisal itself. And that will continue. I don't think there is an end game here. Iran itself has declared that it's waiting it out till the end of the Trump administration's term, at least till the midterms, and see what happens then. They may reevaluate after that because they want to put pressure on the United States to have a little give. And if they give too much now, there may be more leeway later on that they may not be able to take advantage of. I think that is what they're trying to do, to push it as far as they can, whilst Trump is under the pressure as far as domestic pressure within his own party, because the elections are coming, and likelihood, if this continues, they would lose the elections. So individual Republicans themselves are worried about this, whether they can support what's going on and put pressure on Trump to try to diagnose what's going on and change the reality. And if it's not working, there's going to be more pressure on either side, actually. But I don't see anything concrete happening anytime soon.
Dr. Auqaab, we are seeing warnings to the Iranian allies. Any allies who have any economic relations with Iran, will we see tensions in these relations with the economic sanctions? Will the relations between the United States and the Iranian allies witness more tension?
I think this is one aspect of economic stranglehold. It's not just blockading the Hormuz Strait. It is about economic sanctioning of other parties that may engage in economic activity with Iran. Whatever that might be, largely it's trade in oil and gas. And now they're trying to stop that. But the main parties that engage in real economic activity are China and Russia in any way whatsoever, and predominantly China. Now, China has its own interests, and I don't think the United States can really punish them in the way they could do a smaller party. So they may be able to take some of the smaller countries and companies or any other organizations that may engage with Iran, but it's unlikely that they would have effect on larger countries like China or Russia in any way. But then there is an economic impact. nevertheless.
إذا لم تنصاع إيران بعد هذه العقوبات،
Iran does not
هل
comply
تتبقى
after
خيارات
the
بيد ترامب؟
imposition of these sanctions. What are the choices that Trump has?
Well, Trump has been trying to push it. He's trying to use violent tactics. They're not really worked. They've actually strengthened Iran's position. What tends to happen is using violence on a country tends to make more resistance within the country and consolidate the control of the government as it is, and the hardliners especially. So this is what's actually happening. And given 47 years of severe sanctions, Iran has outlasted it and believes it will still outlast the next few months at least. And it's a hope and see what will happen after the elections. Maybe because the Democrats come in the Senate and the House and Congress, for example, they may be able to impose restrictions on Trump's ability to move forward on Iran. But you have to appreciate that the American system's goal is to prevent Iran fundamentally from exercising hostile power, such as acquiring nuclear weapons or imposing actions upon the Gulf states, for example, and opening up Hormuz Strait. So I think that's uniform across parties. So there's going to be a deliberate no-win action, I think, really, and it may prolong itself for a foreseeable future. I think the United States is recognizing that, and the population in the United States. In fact, in a recent poll, 80% of those people who were polled think that this war will carry on for a prolonged period. And that's been the history of the United States as well. In the last few wars that they've had, they've lasted a long time.
شكرا جزيلا لك من الدكتور عقاب عليزاي أستاذ
Thank you so much for you joined by Dr. Auqaab Alizai, the strategic studies professor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.